All right, so it's Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Miguel Adorati, and we're here with another episode of the MMA Conspiracy Hour. And today we're going to talk about the Paul brothers getting into the MMA business to some degree here, and kind of see what Miguel thinks of it. And kind of want to start out. Maybe we could start out with because what did you think of the press conference since you got to see some of that?
Well, the first thing was surprise, right? Because you see Logan Paul and Dana, and I remember Dana raging at the Paul brothers, saying, you guys take steroid tests, I'll take cocaine tests, and they went back and forth on social media against each other, and that would normally be the kiss of death to do any business with Dana, like forever, because Dana's not a kind of guy who's like, yeah, I'll forgive him, we can do this. And in the old days under the Fertittas, we probably wouldn't see Jake Paul's brother associated anywhere near the UFC. Jake Paul just got signed, bought some or signed with the PFL. His, levied consistent attacks on Dana himself that, some fall on the personal side too, so big guys making fun of each other. And just the change in Dana's personality is notable because that type of behavior normally get you written off by Dana quickly, and Dana doesn't fool around really. That's his modus. There was recently a video I saw where he was talking about, the being a savage, the savage nature. He's talking as an expert. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So, where was the savage sitting there with that, kind of hurt and smile next to Logan Paul in this, in this press conference? I didn't see Dana the Savage anywhere near that press conference.
Yeah, and off record, you kind of told us that this might be a power play between Endeavor and Dana White, and that they kind of made him do this. Tell me why you think that could be possible.
Again, now, if you follow us, and what we've been outlining here is we've been talking about the strength of Dana White's contract. There's a contract that transitioned him from Zuffa ownership to the new ownership, and that contract probably protects him. It probably says something along the lines of he makes the final decision on everything that happens in the octagon, fight related, everything there is his. Fighter choices, he's the last sign off on roster, everything. It also seems to protect him from, he's not held to the conduct clauses that his fighters are. So that was not excluded, that was not included in the contract, or if it was, they're ignoring it, right? But they couldn't have given him full power over the corporation. We're going to do everything Dana says, and Dana just, and then, you've got real executives on the corporate end and the people that manage stock and, that type of stuff. Those are serious business people. They're giving all power to Dana is not feasible. So what is feasible is that they held control over corporate sponsorships. And that's what this falls under. It's a drink that's going to put a logo on the octagon. It's not anything to do related with the fighters, the town, or anything like that. So I think that they could say, hey, guess what, Dana? Yeah, we can't fire you. You don't want to leave, right now, but we can make you do some press conferences with Logan Paul to announce our new corporate sponsorship. Because Dana just didn't look physically happy at this press conference, in my estimation. But he's got to. He's also, not dumb, so he's got to toe the line. And he was very, it was a very uncomfortable press conference, in my estimation, for him. And it's having to do a press conference with an enemy and a lesser enemy. So why are you uplifting these people? So I think that there could be something corporate behind it where they're forcing it on him, and move on. And the Pauls are just taking advantage of whatever opportunities they get in front of them. So here is a melt with the UFC. How could the UFC announce a sponsorship with Logan Paul when his brother just bought some part of the PFL? Where would Dana and the Fertittas have acted on that? But this corporation is completely different. So it makes me feel like that's not Dana's full decision.
Yeah, let's elaborate on that a little bit, because I asked you that offline. Do you think maybe the UFC or Endeavor, the bigwigs, thought it would be a good idea to split up the Paul brothers and not risk PFL getting them both to some degree?
look, Dana's a fight person there. Dana's the guy who understands the nitty gritty of the game and things like that, and will avoid. He's a guy who could say this guy's a great fighter, so maybe his social media is something we'll work on, but I'm not losing fact that he's a great fighter. I don't think that a lot of people in the Endeavor world have 20 years of watching fights going on, so they do look more at social media numbers and stuff. And I guess the Paul Brothers Association is valuable, nowadays in the social media world. They're still big enough that they don't need it. So that's why it's still a little weird because of them there. And, let me say something about the Paul brothers. I mean, obviously nobody says, let's limit business and let's try to, shut down, let the old crony buddy system be, what governs the fight game. It's great to be diversifying in businesses and stuff. But by getting involved in this way, and by also getting involved on the fight end with, Jake, what they're doing, I gave an example. I think it's a good example. If in the 1970s, after the Rocky craze, Sylvester Stallone decided to do a couple of boxing matches and, jump in, and he would instantly be on TV, and the boxing world would have probably catered to him because he's bringing attention and money and stuff. And because, boxing, Jake isn't even as respected as Stallone. Stallone recognized in his respect for boxing that he shouldn't just jump in and do something like that. I don't know if he thought about it, but what holds you back is because boxing, MMA, at the end of the day, are sports that are about paying dues in the gym, practicing, putting in the hours, becoming skilled. That carries a lot of weight among the fighters too. And you can see it in certain circumstances when the UFC has rushed people. It has gone wrong. Sometimes they do okay. You could argue Ronda Rousey was rushed into it. She couldn't handle the ego part of it. It's funny. Every time somebody makes a movie, Fedor right before Fedor's loss, he made a movie in Russia. Ronda was in the movies, and then she started losing and things. You got to be dedicated to these sports. And in the case of boxing, it has to do with, boxing Golden Gloves when you were 10 or 12 years old. That stuff carries credence. And the Paul brothers did none of that. The Paul brothers didn't pay any dues in the sport, yet they feel they can come in and just be at the top without acknowledging that in some way. Very disrespectful. I think it'll catch up to them at some point. But they are business people. I don't think they portray themselves as anything but sheer, business people. And that's what they're trying to do, generate money. And that's everything I see of them. But it is a circus, and they'll never. He can knock out Mike Tyson next fight. He can do whatever, he'll never be respected as a boxer because of the falsifying of, he never paid his dues. He never paid his dues. He'll get caught anytime he does a boxing match against a real boxer. That's the point. That's what boxing knows. Just like you're going to tell me Sylvester Stallone in the 70s wouldn't have been 7 or 8-0, and there weren't 100 boxers that were sitting there going, I would kill that guy. Of course, that's the circumstance. That's what's going on in this circumstance with Jake Paul. If you put him in with the wrong persons, then the circus ends quickly. And that's what it is. He has to keep the circus going. Again, if there's no career or love of MMA or any sport, because he takes a loss, he's probably done. It's not like, well, I got to go back to the gym and the drawing board and figure some things out with my trainer and see what we're going to do. So that's how I see the Paul brothers. They're disrespecting both sports by not paying the dues that everybody in the sport is paid.
And do you think, you just think this had to do with money? It had nothing to do with strategy of them not wanting both Pauls to be affiliated with the PFL in some way?
Like I said, that could be a factor because of their social media ratings and stuff, but I would think it's a lesser factor. I think splitting them up doesn't really help them in any way, shape, or form. Maybe grabbing one because they lost the other. But again, what's notable there is that may be Endeavor thinking, you may be right, but that's certainly not Dana thinking. And that's where I really think that there is some type of schism that we're not filled in on going on in this company.
And like you said he didn't look happy at the press conference. Do you think that this could bubble up to some degree? Like where you have
No,
a
like,
clash of heads between Dana and some of these corporate people?
oh, it could happen. It's, with Dana's nature, it probably has happened behind closed doors. It's so in the corporate world, you never should, the public should never hear about that. But it's probably going on, and like I said, Dana has his contract backing him, and Dana understands that thing left and right, so he knows where he is. He knows what he has to do. And again, he knows he's the face of the company. He has to be at certain announcements and certain things. Here's a corporate sponsorship, and that leads him to actually doing a press conference for a product with a guy who you would have labeled an enemy of his, just the day before, maybe in that it came as a surprise. Some people obviously knew they were working on a deal or something. It didn't come together overnight, but it reeks of something Dana wouldn't have done, and something that Dana didn't want. He didn't look like he wanted to do it. So what happens there? There's that contract again. Yeah, you want to be the face of the company. Now go do this press conference and enjoy it. So it's tit for tat too. Dana's up next. Dana, we'll see what Dana comes up with. After Power Slap, I don't know if it can get any more base, but I think that's the back and forth that's going on here.
That's interesting though that these executives would make him do something he didn't like because of what happened, or where this power struggle's going.
Knowing there's a contract that $1,000 an hour lawyers worked on, and that's probably near 50 pages, if not more, for Dana's transition, then somebody's thought about all that sort of stuff before, and there are going to be so again, this contract is strong enough that so Dana can do something that they would fire any fighter for, and not him. So it's a very strong contract. In the fight world, there's nothing they can do, also in terms of no, we want to sign Ngannou. Dana didn't want him. They weren't going to, that's how they make it look and stuff. He's the face of everything there. But these corporate sponsorships of a drink sponsoring the UFC, I think would probably be made by other lawyers. I think that you can pretty clearly see the way that could be separated in some semantics in a contract, because they couldn't just go, well, Dana can do whatever he wants. There's the contract. He can do whatever he wants. No, some corporate sponsorships will be handled by the new office, the new financial people, the new all of that. And we're going to be expanding and looking to do other deals and things like that. Dana would have to say, sure, that sounds great at some point, because they can't touch me on the fight world. They can't ask me to do anything that I don't want to do. So that's how I see that contract. I think that this was a hole in the contract because, why not send Hunter Campbell to this press conference and just not present the look of a smiling Logan Paul, and not his usual fake smile, but a genuinely great smile, compared to the look of embarrassment on Dana. I think that's the right word. Dana he was redder than usual. He really didn't look overly happy about that. And if Dana had the power, Dana could have sent anybody to do this press. John Anik, you know what I mean? Or whoever is announcing these. Joe Rogan doesn't do stuff like that, and he's a billionaire also. But one of the other guys that's under contract and working, he'd be glad to do it. Mike Bisping would be glad to go do it. You know what I mean? He could have sent anybody to go do that press conference, but somehow he was there next to Logan Paul. It sounds like checkers are being played there. Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you something. Do you think it could kind of turn off fans a little bit? Because MMA is kind of a little bit more of a hardcore fan base that doesn't like the Pauls to some degree.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like I said, I don't believe that Jake loses and that they, stay in the fight business and he goes back to work and, in 6 months he's doing a comeback fight and stuff like that. I think there's a derailing there where, his business plan's gone. And if that happens, then we were right in that whole thing, and that's there. They want to prevent that from happening. But that's all they care about is making money, not really the fight game. So I think that's the thing about the Paul brothers is they may be a turnoff, but being a turnoff, Mayweather was a turnoff to many people with his arrogance and stuff. But being a turnoff is just as good as being maybe better at times than being a fan favorite for hauling in money. So I don't know who decides there. Dana's gonna. The funny part is you know what? Dana's gonna probably take home a lot more money from this power drink than his power slap. And that's also a little bit of a slap in the face to Dana. So I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things that aren't there, but you get very little when you have a corporation like that. You get very little of the internal politics, and these could be windows into that.
Yeah, I think we saw some of that with Bjorn Rebney and when they were with who was it that started meddling with Viacom, right?
Look, the UFC is the only one on the fight end who's got the corporate end down. Like Dana was a corporation or a mafia, whatever you want to call it, but Dana got that part, the business end, tight faster and better than anybody. But Jordan Rebney, he's got his background. He's a lawyer. He may have his successes and stuff, but he was riding the coattails. They were always second or B or whatever. And, Dana's the one who was the trailblazer there. And Dana's the one who at any time in the past when somebody's tried to take him on, he's mauled them. And, Jordan didn't have any of that. And like Dana survived every contract negotiation and come out stronger. And the minute Rebney got into it with Eddie Alvarez, he fell on his face because he may be right from a legal standpoint, but it was so transparent what he was trying to do that nobody with any common sense would buy it. So, comparing Jordan Rebney to Dana is like comparing, a Ferrari to a Volkswagen, really, in terms of MMA management.
Now, this sponsorship, it's not like it's going to do big things for their numbers as far as viewership goes, right? I mean, it's just a sponsorship.
Yeah, like I said, it seems to me the other option is that the whole Illuminati thing exists, and that Dana and these guys are crossing into that kind of money and stuff, and that they do everything to make money. And here's one where, hey, there's enough money to go around. Sure, I'll get in bed with my enemy. I'll be seen in a press conference I would never have been seen, back when I was all piss and vitriol, Dana, moving the sport forward. Now Dana's not moving the sport forward. Dana's sustaining the sport. It's almost a different mentality. And that's the other option is that, money trumps everything. And here's the Paul brothers. Is Logan going to somehow influence the pay scale? No, he's right in there. He's now giving money to how much of the Powerade money or whatever power drink money is going to the fighters in the UFC? Because Jake and Logan, in order to accept a corporate sponsorship from the UFC, it should be addressed the very problem that they always bring up, right? So it's like, yeah, I don't think any of it is going to them. If it is, it's probably about 20%, right? That's what's going on there. So maybe it is all about the money, and that's the be-all, end-all. Maybe Dana doesn't like it a little bit, but the powers that be chase that relentlessly. So corporately, they're heading in that direction, and they have been. That's out of the realm of possibility. But I think that even if that is what's going on, and Dana has to be okay, like I said, Dana's going to make more money off that power drink than his power slot. So, at the end of the day, when he gets that check, he's go, oh well, let me call Logan and be like, I just got my 7-figure check for that, or 6-figure check for that. Bygones be bygones, and whatever. No, that's not that's not Dana. That's not Dana. So he's behaving kind of weird. But I think it goes to that. Whatever it is the corporate world, that higher end world of like money and people moving money and stuff like that most average fans like me and you and people that watch the UFC on pay-per-view, don't understand. That's what's in play. And Dana may have some enemies and some people there, but at the end of the day, they're all making money.
Now, did you see anything else at the press conference that you thought was of note?
What am I missing? What are you going to surprise me with?
No, I'm asking you because I didn't watch it actually. I probably should have before we did this. I didn't even know they were going to do one. I just saw a picture of them signing together. But did you
Yeah,
see
no,
anything at the press conference that stood out?
no, just the body language. And I watched it quickly, and I don't think I saw the whole. Like I didn't sit at the beginning and watch the whole thing. I've seen enough to see what I wanted to see, and um, yeah, that's my opinion. I think Dana is being teased corporately by his peers and the people in the office there. And after what he's been through and what he survived, this is probably mild um punishment for what should have been major punishment. So that's why he's also taking it with a grain of salt. But yeah, that's it. It's everybody's making money, and there's games being played behind closed doors, like always.
Can you add a little bit of when you said Dan isn't pushing the sport forward, he's sustaining it? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, when you had to go to a war memorial to see a sport, and you'd be lucky if your pay-per-view carrier showed it, you know. And Dana comes along, and then you start the fight with the commissions and this. There's always been that, the Spike TV announcement, and then moving from Spike to other channels. And when they started to appear on Fox, and it wasn't just Fox's cable channels, they got some fights on Fox's ground, Channel 5 in New York kind of thing. There was always the impression that the sport was growing. Now it's practiced around the world. There are companies around the world doing it. Television companies are buying it as material. What's missing? More companies. Maybe the saturation point is there. But as far as the UFC is concerned, they're already in the number one spot. Maybe one is chasing them, depending on who you believe about their finances. Maybe one manages bigger money, but who knows what's going on with finances from that area of the world. So yeah, I think at this point they're protecting themselves and trying to keep that 80% profit, where they're sharing 20% of the profits with the fighters, trying to keep that model together rather than growing and diversifying. They could easily have changed the model over to a 50-50 model like other sports to avoid criticism, giving the fighters a much bigger piece of the pie, and still be relatively rich. But they chose to not do that. And by relatively, I don't think Dana would have gone from having a garage full of exotic sports cars to wondering if he'll trade in his Lexus from 2009 this year or next year. You know what I mean? They've already made the money, but I think at this point the money coming in is sustained. They're not looking to grow the business or put the business to the next level. There really is no next level in terms of distribution either. They're on the major channels, they're all around the world. Distribution would be the next level of getting it in front of more people. It's very hard to do at this point. They're already in front of billions of people.
Does that give your advantage to your competitors though? Because they have room to grow and you don't.
Hey, they say it in the very sport we're talking about. They say the champion gets a target on their back, and I think Dana's worn that target and mauled everybody who's targeted him. And but at this point, yeah, I think that his behavior is a little bit different in terms of the corporation and stuff. It also used to be, even as relatively recently as McGregor, it used to be about trying to make the biggest fights. And now it seems to be about trying to make the most reasonably priced fights. Ngannou and John Jones probably would have been more expensive than Ngannou and Gane. Not that Gane is not a good fight, but Gane's not. They're just going to hold Gane to his contract, and he's got 10 fights, so he's on the lower end of the pay scale, and that's that.
Well, I think it's a good thing to end on. It's an interesting discussion. I'm sure we could peel back a lot of stuff, but I thought it was a good elaboration on where the Pauls are and what you think they're gonna kind of get into here.
Yeah.
So Miguel, I appreciate it, and as always,
No
people
problem.
watching the MMA Conspiracy Hour, this is Miguel Dorade, matchmaker extraordinaire. You might be seeing him do some more here soon, perhaps. And
Perhaps.
I'm Todd Atkins signing off. Till next time.
Thanks a bunch, Todd.